Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2020 show, presented as always by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, and SVRA. Founded in 1993 to spearhead Honda's entry into IndyCar racing, Honda Performance Development has overseen successful racing efforts at all levels of the sport, from karting and quarter midgets to IndyCar and prototype sports cars. HPD offers race engines and competition parts for professional, amateur, and entry-level racers. For more information about HPD and the company's racing products line, please visit hpd.honda.com. A couple things I mentioned, as I say frequently, if you need a dentist, there's only one place to go. You want a good one, that's where you go, is the Indy Dental Group. Dr. Jack Miller and Dr. Liz Lewis have a phenomenal practice, and they'll take care of you. Call and get an appointment. Number 317-846-6125. We do have a new computer guy. It's Affordable Computer Doctor, Steve Freeze. He makes house calls. If you need anything, call him up, talk to him. His number is 317-328-0766. Autosport will not be here next Tuesday. It is St. Patty's Day. So if you want a good corned beef and cabbage, this is the place to come. So come on in anyway. They're going to have Big Daddy Caddy will be the band, and they'll have a lot of giveaways, a lot of exciting stuff. So if you were looking for a place to be Irish for a night, this is the place to be, McGilvery's. And this Sunday, the IndyCar season kicks off. St. Petersburg, Florida. How many are going? Anybody going? That's it? Has nothing to do with it, but it's St. Patrick's Day, so that's what we're going to do. Anyway, you want to, if you don't have NBC Gold, you ought to get it. It's really good. Shows the practice and qualifying and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You can watch the Road to Indy program as well. So if you get a chance, sign up for it. It's great. But just remember, I'm sorry, it will be a good race, and the PR they sent out today said the ticket sales are at all-time high, and nobody seems to be backing out, so I'm going to be there. A couple things to mention today. The world-famous Hall of Famer's birthday, Mike Smith's birthday, is today. And tomorrow, Derek Daly and McGilvery's own Cassie has a birthday. On Thursday, the late John Andretti would have been his birthday. And Friday the 13th, lucky Robert Wickens is his birthday. He'll be 31. Of course, Sunday is Beware the Ides of March, but that's a racetrack, so it won't bother anybody. On the 17th, St. Patty's Day, no show, as I said. Dawn, formerly of McGilvery's, has a birthday on Thursday. Friday is the 111th anniversary of the founding of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And the 20th, Friday the 20th, is the birthday of the late John Martin. I think somebody's nephew or somebody or something. On the 21st, Quincy, Ted, I can hear and I can read. It's his great-granddaughter's 10th month birthday. Howdy will be officiating. And by the way, for those of you who attended and those of you who didn't, you missed a good one Saturday night across the road at the Planter and Buchanan. They roasted Howdy Bell, and they measured him for a box. He's all set to go now. That was part of the deal. And I thought that was the reason he was there, in case he keeled over. But he survived. The next race for the SVRA is the 26th to the 29th at Road Atlanta. It's the 2020 Road Atlanta Grand Prix. So if you're anywhere near Hazleton, Georgia, I highly recommend you stop in and see it. My first guest is a gentleman that I have seen and didn't really know who he was, but now we're very close. He is the commander-in-chief and head recruiter for the Speedway safety team. Everybody talks about the yellow shirts. What do they do? How do you get to be a yellow shirt? What's the deal? So I said, why don't we just talk to the man who's in charge, who'll tell us. And one of the things that Roger is very interested in is making sure that the fans get a good experience, and he's going out of his way to make that happen. Find out more about it. Please welcome Mr. Steve Somermeyer.
Hey, thanks. Let me tell you how I got hooked up with the Safety Patrol.
Hey, by the way, how did you start with the Safety Patrol? If you want, I'll just go sit with Bob.
No, that's all right. I came to work for Lilly right out of college. In fact, I graduated from school, got married, moved from Iowa to Indiana, and started work in 6 days. So I passed a lot of those life's milestones in a very short period of time. And I came to work in January. So May, a bunch of new engineers, we went out, partied all night in the North 40, and I'd listened to the race on the radio, but not seen it in person. And so then we were in the mad dash to get in the infield, and most of my compatriots dozed off in the morning. Well, I was enthralled with all the marching bands and all the stuff going on, and so I decided I had to get closer. And so, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks after the race, I stopped over at the old administration building museum at 16th and Georgetown, and said I wanted to apply. Well, what do you mean? I said I need an application to work for the 500, at the 500. They didn't have applications back then. And so they didn't quite know what to do with me. And so I ended up talking to their head of security. And back then, when you started as a safety patrol person, started parking cars, and then you might direct traffic, and then you might take tickets, and then you might work in the grandstands, and maybe a decade or so you'd get to work in the garage. Well, my first year I was in the pits, and everybody said, "Who do you know? You know, is your name Holman? You know, who do you know?" And I said, "Well, I just asked some questions and wanted to work." So there I was, and my career could have been over about 4 hours into my first day, because this is the first day of qualification, and this gentleman in a brown suit came walking up to the gate that I was watching, and I didn't see a badge. And so I asked him for his badge, and he smiled and pulled his billfold out and opened it up and had a silver badge in there. I said, "Thank you," and he went on in, and my supervisor came running up. "Do you know who that was?" I said, "No." Was Tony Holman. So my career.
What did he have a badge in his wallet for?
Well, everybody knew him. He didn't need.
Oh.
But he had a silver badge in his wallet.
Oh, silver badge.
Silver badge, and so that got him in, you know. But anyway, so that started it, and that was 71, by the way. So I've been going ever since. As long as it's fun, I've hung in there. Now, when Mr. Penske bought the Speedway and IndyCar,
I'm glad I don't have to ask you anything.
All right. Well, I've never done this before, so you gave me the mic, and so I started going off. All right. So, Mr. Penske would like to.
Can we back up a little bit?
Sure.
I mean, you're talking. I got here in 71. Now you're at 2020.
Yeah.
In between.
All right.
What the hell have you done? And how did you get to the elevated place that you are now?
Sure. Well, and one of my good memories. Well, I'm in many photos of past races, because for about 20 years, I guided the winning car into Victory Circle.
Andy Granatelli didn't kiss you too, did he?
No, but he patted, almost knocked me down, patted me on the back as he ran to the car. But anyway, because most of the drivers didn't know where Victory Circle was. Because you know, they're all enthralled excited about what just happened, and so they're looking around, and so I'm out in the pit lane, jumping up and down, waving my arms to get their attention, and then I'd backpedal doing a 180 to get them into Victory Circle. And so my behind is in lots and lots of pictures, thousands of pictures, but they never saw my face, so
nobody can blame you for that then, huh?
No, that's right. Al Jr., I ended up on his nose cone because he didn't stop in time in Victory Circle, so I ended up on his nose cone. But so after a number of years, I became a supervisor in the pits, and then when I retired from Lilly, I made the mistake of saying I could give them more hours. Well, that's not the right way to do it, right?
Well, you could have already said, well, never mind, I misspoke.
Well, so I moved up to the top of the pagoda to help monitor the radios and answer the phones to help. And back then it was Jim Campbell and a couple of his guys and Kevin Forbes, and that was it. It was pretty informal. And you had to know who to call to get something to happen. So they moved me up there to learn, I think looking back, they wanted me to learn more about the entire track or speedway property rather than just the garage and pits. And so then, I don't know, 5 or 6 years of that, and there was a change in command in the garage and pits. And so they asked me who I thought should take over the garage and pits, safety patrol people. And I gave them 5 or 6 names, says, no, that's not the right answer. We think it ought to be you. And I said, well, I really don't want to supervise that many people. There was a couple hundred people in the garage and pits back then. But anyway, so I did. And then when we had a change in senior leadership, they formalized the command center, and they asked me to come up and be the coordinator for all the parts. And so I'm the coordinator for the Pagoda Command. We monitor 12 different radio channels and about 8 different phone numbers. And we try to solve problems. And one of the trivia items for you is that Pagoda Command on race day has over 100 people up there on the 9th floor. All the public safety people, the fire, medical,
Homeland Security,
FBI, Secret Service. There's a coroner. We have an FAA person up there with a radar. We control the airspace. Now the trivia there is, with 100 people, there's 1 restroom.
Yeah, but there's an elevator shaft.
Yeah, but the elevators are always busy, and so you got to plan ahead. Let's put it that way. So, Ms. Krapinski, the primary reason I'm here is that Roger would like.
No, you're here because I invited you. And people ask all the time, what in the world do yellow shirts do? What is a yellow shirt? What do they do? When I came here, they wore pith helmets. I got here before you did. I was here in the early 60s.
Yep, I had 1 year or 2 years with a plastic bump helmet, a construction hat, and then we went to the baseball hats. But anyway, so the Safety Patrol, they're the first and last people that fans see. Parking their cars, directing traffic, taking their tickets, checking their coolers, and in the grandstands, and they're the first and last people that are seen by a Speedway employee. And so it's important. When I started, the Safety Patrol were sort of hard asses, to be blunt. And it was a challenge to get, you had to have the exact right credential, and even then they might insult you before they let you go through. But now we're much more fan-friendly. And so we have about 1,000 Safety Patrol members, and Roger would like us to decrease our dependence on hiring outside security people to check coolers, help us with traffic, that sort of thing. And so he challenged us to hire 250 additional Safety Patrol this year.
What's the difference going to be what they had to what now? I mean, I used to run around just for the hell of it. They, where is such and such? They got, I don't know.
Well, we formalized training, and we have people have little handbooks that gives them maps and locations. And if they don't know, they're supposed to say, "I'll find out," and they call us in Pagoda Command. And that's
So
how they answer the question.
Obviously, Roger's intent is make the visit to the Speedway the best it can possibly be, and there's nothing worse than trying to go somewhere. You ask somebody with a yellow shirt who's supposed to know and they don't know them. He doesn't like that, I'm sure.
No, well, we don't like that.
Well,
But anyway, so as of about an hour ago, we had 177 new hires. So we're well on our path to get to 250. But now, while I'll give you my pitch, I have cards here. And on the bottom of it is where you can do your electronic application. And when it's not you, it may be a member of your family, maybe a neighbor, friend, but it's a chance to be something, part of something pretty big. And we pay a huge $9 an hour. But your parking is inside with free parking, and we have transportation down to your work site. And Roger's ordered new rain jackets for all of us because if the weather is crappy, he wants us all to look alike.
I think being as the company that purchased the Speedway is now called Penske Entertainment. So I suspect with the connections that Allison has, there will be some entertainment in between the two races. Do yellow shirts work that, or do they bring something else, somebody else in?
Within the concert venues, for all the concerts, we do hire external security people. But managing the crowds outside the confines of the concert venues, it's yellow shirts.
Do you know if they've scheduled any musical entertainment in between the events?
There's concerts on Friday and Saturday of race weekend, but nothing this year, although we've been told, hold on for 2021.
Yeah. Expect so. What are some of the silliest things that you encountered from fans, or even for that matter from the yellow shirts? Kidding.
Well, there's every year there's someone that calls irate on one of our hotlines and says, this is like an hour before race, the green flag drops, and they've just left Carmel, and they're complaining that the traffic is so heavy they can't get in, and to hold the race up until they get there. It happens every year. Honest, somebody, it's not the same guy, because I end up talking to him, but every year someone calls us, you got to hold the race up till I get there. And I said, you don't understand. There's a lot of things going on here. I'm sorry.
Any chance you give me that number? You and I could call you with all kinds of silly stuff. Guess not. I guess not. Okay. You don't want me to call you. I understand.
Actually, I can. If you have a problem, honest, public service. If you have a problem with the Speedway, 317-492-5500.
Where does that go?
That goes to command, and Frank, Mike, Jeff, and anybody else. At times, there's a dozen people answering that phone.
I call and say, I'd like to talk to Steve.
492-5500.
Oh, boy.
But honest, I mean, we get thousands and thousands of calls race morning. And so a few of you calling aren't going to add to that load very much.
Well, if you happen to be, because if I call and you don't answer, I'm going to ask for you. You get some silly request.
Sure.
But anyway. What are some of the stranger things you've seen when you were overseeing the pits and or the garage area? People have done. You said, you really?
Well, the old snake pit.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with the old snake pit.
I'm always astonished at the diversity of the human race. And there are many, many things that are, you got to be kidding me. And it's just, I can't repeat many of the things I've seen.
I came with Dick Simon to Speedway, and I forget who the guy, I know him, said, you got to come down to my office and see this. What is it? Come down and see it. Somebody made a porn video. They started out in the garage area, ended up in the snake pit. Nobody said anything. They're walking around and I didn't see it, right? I've been following it, but I didn't see it. I saw the video. Find them, yep. Did you get it pulled? Yep. Pulled a lot of them before they did. And of course, the famous story about AJ going around warming up, and he said, "Hey, can you see what's going on in Snake Pit? What are you looking in there for? You're supposed to be doing, what's going on here?"
Well, my AJ story, Hoyt Racing is notorious for not leaving the garage area when they're supposed to. When the garage closes, they're always the last to leave. And so, in fact, we used to just lock the gates and make them climb over the fence to get out. And then somebody warned us that AJ's getting a little up in years, and it wouldn't be good PR for him to fall and break a hip or something.
He can do that anyway lately.
But so when I was named the head of the Garage and Pits group, I was summoned to AJ's garage. In fact, Cecil came down to get me. And what the heck, you know? So I go down, and AJ was talking to a couple, some sponsors, and finally motioned me forward. And he looks at me, it doesn't say a word, looks at me, and finally says, "I guess you'll do. You're not one of the a-holes that have been busting my butt all these years."
Left the gate open for him.
We actually ended up giving Cecil a key.
I see. Okay, well.
Now, don't tell anybody that, because, but
No.
anyway.
Oh, boy. In the pit area, I've got to think, because I wander around and watch, and people do some of the silliest things there with it. First off, I wonder how half of them get in. Number one, because they have no clue what they're looking at or where they're going, and they wander out where they shouldn't be because they don't know better. But that's got to be interesting to have overseen that for a number of years.
Yeah, everybody thinks they're important, and they think their credential ought to do more than it supposedly gets them. And so I talk probably half a dozen times a day to the credential office to make sure that this is what they were told, and this is what they get, not what they want. Now, we talk about credential checking, and I have one good story. One of my other passions is wine. I'm a professional commercial winemaker, and I judge wine around the country. I mean, that's a good gig. They pay me to drink. But so, as I travel around the country doing these judging competitions, if somebody mentions, "Oh, you're from Indianapolis," the 500 is on my bucket list. I can say, I can make that really happen. You know, how would you like to be up close? And so there was this gal in Austin, Texas, and she wasn't a race fan, but her boyfriend and son were really big race fans. So 3 years ago, Bonnie and Hans and Stalen came up to work the race. The two guys came up in their motor coach or their motor home, parked in the employee campground, and worked from the practice for the Grand Prix all the way through. Bonnie flew in Thursday night before a race weekend, and so the guys are working, and so we thought we'd put her in with a couple of experienced people and put her in Gas Alley checking credentials going from the garage into the pits. That was her first hours on the job. But she had, experienced people with her, so it wasn't, and she was loving it because I checked on her a couple times, and then late in the morning of carb day, she stops this guy and says, "Sir, I need to see your credential." "Well, I don't have it with me." He says, "You need a credential to get in the garage, get in the pits." "Sir, well, I don't have it with me." "You've got to have a credential. I need to go out there." And so this goes back and forth. And so finally she says, "Who do you think you are, Mario Andretti?" "As a matter of fact, I am." And Mario was headed out in his driver's suit to drive the two-seater to give Victor Oladipo a ride in the two-seater. And at this time, the gold badge, the supervisor comes running up. "Bonnie, it's okay, it's okay." But he doesn't have a credential. "It's okay, Bonnie, it's okay." So he goes on, and then when people explained what she'd done, she was aghast. But she didn't know, her boyfriend and son were the Brace fans. She wasn't at all. So she went down to apologize where the two-seaters were leaving south at the pits. And Mario was very gracious, hugged her, signed her hat, took selfies with her. But anyway, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard a state patrolman do.
Well, when you don't know, you don't know. And you said they had other people there. What, were they all standing back laughing?
Well, they were all really busy because it was, there were a couple hundred people go through there every 5 minutes.
Oh, and I get caught every single day. Show me your badge. Came here, I don't care. So.
Well, a lot of it, you got to have an honest face.
Well, that's all right. That's problem number 2 then. Okay. Oh well. What kind of training? Now, it's my understanding that Roger wanted his own people so that he could train them, not somebody walk in on Sunday morning and say, "Hi, I'm here," and I don't know what's going on. How do you train? Do you sit down with them or just give them a book and hope they can read?
No, everybody gets an employee manual, which has lots of reference material, a little pocket manual to refer to. They have a full day of training, April 26th this year. And some of the customer-friendly or customer-focused training is going to be conducted by Disney. Roger uses Disney to train his volunteers and people at the Detroit Grand Prix. And so we're going to tap that resource. And so the first half of the day is just, in general, fan-friendly customer satisfaction. And then the last half of the day, you break out into the different divisions where you're actually going to be assigned, and you walk through the area, meet your supervisors, talk about what the different specifics are for that area.
Then I assume majority of the 250 will be local. Are people flying in from Florida and California and Utah?
I've got 2 more coming from Austin, Texas.
2 are from Austin.
2 more from Austin, Texas. They're going to camp in a tent for the qualifying through race.
Oh, they got campground.
Right.
But I mean, coming in for the indoctrination, they will be here for that, I assume.
No, well, they won't be here for the full day training, but we'll send them the PowerPoint presentation and a video of the training session. But 90% of the people are local. They'll drive in from, we draw as far as Lafayette, Peoria, Illinois, Columbus, Ohio, that sort of stuff.
So you're retired from Lilly?
That's correct. I'm a chemical engineer with an MBA, and initially it was the complexity of the cars, how they could get that much power out of such a little engine. And as the years passed, I've actually transitioned to people watching.
I do that a lot.
Well, it's the pressure, the crew members, drivers, owners, sponsors, they respond differently to that stress or that incredible pressure. And some people are just cool as cucumbers, and others, you can just see them tighten up and get really tight, almost paralyzed.
The real interesting, the really reason I asked you to come here is you're a wine taster. Do you make your own wine? You have your own brand?
No, I was one of the 2 winemakers at Chateau Thomas in Plainfield for 16 years.
Okay, so you were a taster, or you were what do they call a brewer, whatever it's.
Well, I was the enologist at Chateau Thomas, a winemaker. Dr. Thomas was a dear friend. I'd known him for 50 years, and when he passed, the kids weren't interested in keeping it going, and so they sold it to a winery up north of Fort Wayne. And unfortunately, they renovated the place, changed the name, and shut it down December 31st.
Oh, really?
So anyway, things move on. But my wife and I have a small vineyard outside Danville. So we grow grapes. We don't make our own wine. Well, I make a few gallons on the side, but we sell the grapes to local wineries. And
like Easily buy from you?
No, Easily has their own vineyards down on the Ohio River.
Yeah, I know they do.
In fact, this year, all of our grapes we grow are going to go to Owen Valley Winery down near Spencer.
Now, how do you get to be a taster? What makes your palate so that you could go, ah?
Be opinionated.
Oh,
But no, I grew up with wine as part of the dinner. My dad made wine at home in Iowa. He had grapes shipped in refrigerated boxcars from California, and he'd make his 10 gallons or so at home, and it was part of the meal. And so I remember 5 or 6 years old that it was part of the meal. I had a glass of wine at dinner. And then when I went to college, I couldn't afford wine, so I bought cheap beer. But then when I started Lilly, well, I've got some money, I can buy some wine now. And so I joined some wine enthusiast groups, and the other guys mentored me, basically, pointed out differences and stuff. And the more you taste, the more you learn. And let me give you my 10-second wine appreciation course. Open 2 bottles of the same wine, say Merlot, different wineries, but 2 bottles at the same time. Taste them and decide which one you prefer. And then the key is why. And in your mind, you don't have to verbalize it, just say, why do I prefer this one versus that one? Because if you open a bottle one night and the other bottle the next night, the meal's different, your day's been different. You need to taste them side by side at the same time, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your palate, you figure out what you really like.
well, I tried that. Stopped on the way back from the casino in Shelbyville. We stopped at Buck Winery,
Buck Creek.
whatever, Buck Creek Winery. And they said, you know, it's X amount, you get so many samples in X amount. And so I did X amount a few times. I tasted a lot. Getting to the car was a little more strenuous than I had anticipated. But strangely enough, for a small local winery, that's pretty good.
Well, in the last 20 years, the technology has improved so much, advanced so much, that there's hardly no bad wine anymore. There's no excuse for a bad wine. You've got the analytical tools and the knowledge to make good wine. It may be a little different from what you're used to, but it's quality wine. When I judge wine, by the way, in a typical day is you judge 125 to 150 different wines.
Ooh.
You got to spit everything out.
Oh.
I mean that, and by the way, at the end of the day, a beer tastes really, really good.
Well, listen, could I call up to you at that, whatever that number was, and see if
5,500.
see if I can get it? You have wine up there? Come up for a little schluck?
No, unfortunately, on the clock it's a dry on the clock.
I see. Well, you know, people have talked for years. What are yellow shirts? What do they do? How do they get there? What's the status? So now we've got a pretty good idea what it's all about.
You know, it's as low pressure as you're an usher in the grandstands, and you may just work race day, but you're going to work 16 hours. But once the crowd's in, you get to watch the race. It may be as stressful as managing credentials or the lugs in the pits. There's a lot of pressure there. You could end up scanning tickets at a gate, and there again, it's a big crush just before the race or the race morning, and then you get to watch the race on one of the big screens, or you walk over and watch.
Oh no, you got to wait for that person coming from Carmel so they can get in the gate.
Well, they keep some people there. By the way, some more trivia for you. Gate 1, 16th and Georgetown's the largest gate, right? And we search every backpack, every cooler, and scan the tickets. And we're staffed to handle peak 1,000 a minute. Now, we can only do that for 4 or 5 minutes, and then we start backing up. But for 4 or 5 minutes, we can handle 1,000 a minute. So it takes quite a bit of organization. It takes lots of people.
Now, the last thing I got to ask you, you were mentioning to Brenda the other night, when I was here a week ago, Monday, that you look for organizations that want to raise funds and
Sure.
a minimum of 10 people per organization, but they can have, I assume, 20 if they've got them. Well, how does that work?
Sure, nonprofits, we use a lot of nonprofits, particularly handling suites and then checking coolers and that sort of thing. And the minimum number of people, and this could be your soccer club, could be band, veterans group, whatever,
Lunch group? How about a lunch group?
if you're a nonprofit.
Well, I don't know.
Anyway, so they pay minimum of 10, they pay $120 a person for that day. And that's the same pay as if you were cleaning up with the grandstands the day after the race. In fact, this year, for the first time, we've asked some of the groups that clean up the grandstands, hey, how would you like to work the day before? And about half of them said, sure. So that was something that was, you would think it'd be obvious, but we never thought about asking that.
So if you are
If you're a nonprofit and want to consider, there's a phone number on these cards, or Don's got my phone number and email, and I'll put you in touch with the guy that handles the nonprofits.
I got to tell you this. He gave me his card a couple weeks ago. And said, give me a call. Would you want to do the program? He said, yeah, give me a call. So he hands me his card. I called 3 times. I know I left somebody a message, I assume. But the first couple times it said that there's no voicemail. It's full. So I finally got a hold of him and said, what's the problem? Oh, I got a Bob, and then Bob got a hold of you, and you called me. I said, what's the deal? Why could he get you? I know he's a stud muffin, but why did he get through and I didn't? Well, what number did you call? The one on your card, 4 to the wrong number. Really? The Speedway gave you a card with the wrong number? Well, that's good, and I don't feel so bad, some of the dumb things I do.
Well, I made the mistake of trusting my staff at the track, and I didn't proofread the card.
Okay. Well, listen, if anybody's interested, has a group, a band, as they said, or an alumni group or something, want to raise some funds,
Sure.
It's $1,250 if you get 10 people. Pretty good for a day. And if you got 20 that are standing around not busy, that's even more. So take a card, talk to somebody, call up. You're looking to be a yellow shirt. There it is. Here's your chance. They're still looking for what, another 80 or 90 more, something like that?
Yep, another 85 or so. And by the way, Roger said that we could go over the 250 if we that wasn't a limit. That was a goal.
Well, I think he's going to find out in the next couple of years that this is going to come back to him. And people say, boy, it's great now. This got all these things going on. And the Johns are all nicely painted too, incidentally. So,
By the way, okay, trivia, there's 166 restrooms, permanent restrooms on the Speedway grounds. And 152 have been renovated or are being renovated. And there's still some troughs. They didn't get completely rid of all the troughs. There's still some troughs.
are they there forever, or are they going to change them eventually?
Oh, they're planning to keep them as part of the legacy.
Well, that's good. No doubt that's where I'll end up. All right. If anybody doesn't understand what the yellow shirts do, you better now. And if you want to join them, pick a card up here. It's got everything you need to sign up. How about you, Howdy? Maybe you could do that. You wouldn't fall asleep. Or tell everybody, hi, I'm Howdy Bell. You want to hear about, I'm in the Hall of Fame. I was shot as a kid. You want to see where they shot me? Oh, that one was really good. Anyway, thanks, Steve, for being here. Appreciate it. There's some cards. Help yourself. If you got a question, I assume you might be here. I don't know. Maybe you'll run out the door. He'll hang around. So thanks for being here. Steve Somermeyer. Thank you. My next guest will start heading this way momentarily. In the meantime, I will mention to you that if you're interested in finding out what the heck it's like, why these people like to drive these Indy cars, take a ride in a 2-seater. It's closer than you might suspect. If you're interested, You can go online to the IndyRacingExperience.com and in the promo box put DK1, or you can call the office, talk to Shonda. The number is 317-243-7171. Ask for Shonda, and she'll take care of you. If you're looking for insurance for your home, your car, your commercial property, there's only one place to go. That's Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. He's located at 5004 West 16th Street in the beautiful town of Speedway, Indiana. Give him a call. You might find, as a lot of us did, you get better coverage for less money. Give him a call. His office number is 317-248-0070. That's VP Insurance and Speedway, 317-248-0070. And if you're a vintage fan and are into the SVRA and what they're doing, you need to subscribe to Speed Tour magazine. It is top class magazine. So just go to svra.com and subscribe. You'll be glad you did. If you have an interest in wanting to own a vintage car, if you have one and need it restored, take it to the Grant King shops. They can handle everything. Rebuild engines, they can restore the car, they can do what you need. Give them a call. The number is 317-820-3595. And if you'd like to take a group and tour some race shops, I wouldn't do it in May because they'll all be at the Speedway. You can get a ride in the limousine that Grant King shops have. Give them a call. Get up 6 or 8 people, take a ride. They'll pick you up from wherever you get together, take you on a tour, and bring you back. Number of that, again, is the same, 317-820-3595. My next guest is a gentleman that I'm sure those of my, well, I've said gentleman, I'm sorry. This guy is here. His family started probably the most famous bar anywhere. It was the hangout for everybody. It was Groucho Marx. It was even Tony Hellman. Stars of everything came in there. When they came to town, they had to go to the White Front. And a lot of strange things happened while there. And there he is with his purple shirt, jacket, I should say. And it was just something. I was there a number of times. I'm not sure how many times. Really? Some of the times I left, I didn't remember I was there. But anyway, he is the grandson of the founder. His dad worked there for many years. And had the same name, actually. So please welcome Mr. What's your name again? Earl Nick Mates. That's what it is. Nick Mates.
Banana folk.
No, don't.
There we go. It appears to me that there's a common thread tonight. My dad was a barkeep, and my grandpa was a bootlegger, and we were talking a lot about wine. So should I start out with that theme, or do you want to ask questions?
The trouble is, if you start talking about whining, Howdy will think you're talking about him.
Okay.
How did your grandfather start? What prompted him to start this in the beginning?
Funny story. I think 20-some years after I think the business was sold, I found all the paperwork that basically from day one with the White Front Tavern, and my grandpa couldn't get a liquor license. Everything was in my grandma's name. And I asked the question to my dad, who at the time was still alive, and he said, well, he was a bootlegger. And in Hallville, that's what they did during the Prohibition. He made booze in the tub. And then I think he got thrown in jail for less than a month.
Oh, poor guy.
And then he made it legitimate. My grandma basically had all the paperwork to start this. Let me back up a little bit. He was a jack of all trade. He basically, any house that was built from 16th Street to 10th Street, from Tibbs Avenue to Louette, my grandpa actually built those. He was a phenomenal builder for houses. In fact, we lived at 14th and Louette for many, many years. But at some point in time, he shifted gears and decided that he wanted to go ahead and pass the business on to my aunt, my uncle, my mom, and dad. With that said, my dad was not very much of a marketing type person, but he did pass these type of, by the way, I'm going to give away 2 of these tonight if you're interested. Jackie has some little tickets that we can go ahead and give them out to. But I think, Howdy, you've got one, right? And you've got one underneath that
yeah, I
fancy
forgot.
jacket, right?
Oh, I wore this jacket because I walk around with a T-shirt and women just go crazy.
Really?
Yeah, because I look pregnant primarily. But this is a shirt that he has. If we ever get to it, there's an interesting story about somebody doing it, and you put them out of business real quick.
Okay, we're shifting gears. Okay. Anyway, my dad and my uncle, they both were not marketing type people, but the whole concept of the T-shirt was he gave them away to several of the drivers and mechanics, and if they wore it out at the track, they're entitled to come out and come back to the bar and have lunch, free lunch. Back in those days, just like today, there's no such thing as a free lunch, but a lot of the drivers wore these all the time because they didn't have multi-million-dollar budgets, nor did they have fire suits, but several of, by the way, I've got quite a few different, everything you ever want to know about the Mates White Front is here. And I accumulated somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 different photos of people that were wearing the shirt during that time frame. So you can have anything you want up here, it's just a bunch of handouts, because I will give you a pop quiz next time if I'm ever invited back. I know I only have about 7.5 minutes now.
Oh, you got 10 or 15.
Oh, okay. Oh, sure.
So what?
Okay, where do you want to start? Questions, or you want me to tell my best story? By the way, how many people have ever went to the Mates White Front? Okay, I would love
Go
to
ahead,
talk to
Howdy,
you.
raise your hand for Pete's sake.
I would love to talk to you guys because some of the best stories come from the guys that went, well, the ladies too. A guy came up to me at one of the memorabilia shows. Oh, you're son of Mike Mates and Nick Mates? I said, yeah. I see those scars right there? And I says, yeah, they're really prevalent. He says, yeah, that's where I got in a fight with A.J. Foyt. I said, who won? He says, why do you think I'm still talking about it? Because I got my ass kicked that night. And we have all kinds of stories. I love to hear all the different stories because it's almost like a cult following with the Mates White Front. And I think the part with the shirt, you still see people wearing the originals out there. This jacket, a funny story, my dad and A.J. Watson were good buddies. And when he passed away, his daughters had an auction, and this particular jacket, I think there's only 3 in existence, sold for $600. And I'm thinking to myself, anybody want to offer me $700 for it? So I'm just totally amazed that people are willing, people got money nowadays. So, T-shirt, I did put a guy out of business. We were actually, a guy was up in Michigan was selling these for $35. I went out and got to contact a couple of friends of mine that made these for me for like $9, and I sold them for $10, mainly to get this guy out of business. Unfortunately, my dad never did get a trademark or copyright on these things, so I did put the guy out of business. I only have like maybe 6 or 7 left, but if there's enough interest, and I think I gave you one. You're so cheap.
Are you
wouldn't even.
kidding? The guy at
Okay, Howdy, I gave you one, right? Okay, good. And there's a lot of.
He wears it to bed every night.
I don't know whether you're aware of it. Doug Bowles is a real history buff, and when I gave it to him, I thought he was going to be in tears. And I was a little concerned because it says Indy 500, Indianapolis 500. I'm thinking nowadays I probably get sued for giving this out. And exactly, because it's copyrighted and everything, anything to do with Indy 500, including your jacket.
They gave this to me, so they can't sue me for wearing it. There's a kind of an interesting story, which initially AJ, speaking of AJ, denied. And his PR gal said, no. I heard what happened. He got into screwdrivers one night.
Right.
And he ended up in the John with the, I forget what they say, O'Rourke. Spent half of the night on the floor, sick. And he said no, and Ann said, oh yeah, that's the story I've heard.
Well, the veterans that hung out at the Mates White Front, they were there just about every night during the month of May. From May 1 until the race. In fact, after the race, a lot of the guys actually celebrated their win at the Mates White Front. It was long before you had 3 or 5, 7 hours worth of interviews afterwards. But the interesting story was A.J. Foyt had never been to the Mates White Front. It was his rookie year at the 500. So some of the other guys, the seasoned veterans, they brought him in. He says, I don't drink. And they said, I'll just have a pop. And then they said, well, they don't sell pop here. So I said, okay, I'll have an orange juice. Little did AJ know that there was about this much vodka and this much orange juice in it. And he did, in fact, but he basically was in the bathroom for all night. Next morning, he had no idea why he felt so bad because he thought he was drinking orange juice.
And there's also a story about Bobby Unser was having a problem and the bartender medicated him.
Exactly. more than once. Bobby, I was just at an event, Jackie, I hate to say girlfriend because I'm at the stage of my life, you don't say girlfriend. But if you say significant other, then that's, you're not sure exactly what that means either.
But
anyway,
what it means is she's significant.
Yeah, she's my main squeeze, I guess.
There you go.
Anyway, we were at an event where Bobby showed up, and it was really, I mean, people were waiting in line to get his autograph, take pictures with him and everything. Once I walked up and I said, you probably don't remember the Mates White Front. For almost an hour later, that's all he wanted to talk about was the Mates White Front. But a lot of the times was the White Front, not the Mates White Front. A whole nother story is that we had to shut down. All I need to say was the IRS, right? There's different reasons why we were shut down, but my dad and my uncle never saw the check for the amount that was paid. Yeah. So it was one of those things where it's like really sad. But at the same token, I'd still probably be in the bar business if it wasn't shut down.
What would be wrong with that?
Well, I had to move it to a different location.
Yeah, now, if I'm not mistaken, it moved, and then the place when they shut down was the, what is it, Club Venus?
Correct.
And now that's kaput, I understand.
Right, it's up for sale again if anybody wants to buy it and set me up in business. I'll go ahead and make another Mates White Front, another run at it. Actually, I'm supposed to be semi-retired, but I don't think I can run a bar at this age.
Well, you can walk a bar, you don't have to run.
That's true.
And if I recall, when Venus took over the building, they remodeled everything except the men's Johnny.
Right, and they painted everything black,
Yeah.
inside and out.
Yeah, and there's no light from the outside in. You had to come in with a miner's hat to see your drink.
Can I tell one of my favorite stories?
Of course.
Where my mother wouldn't talk to my dad for 3 weeks.
Really?
It all relates to Tony Holman and my dad were really good friends. Well, there's two stories. One that he said, do not let my daughter in this bar. And it wasn't at the day when she turned 21, she brought her driver's license in and did one of these things. Mr. Mates, I'm 21 and I want a drink. You can fill in the blanks. The other story is when Tony brought, it was To Please a Lady, a movie by Clark Gable was in it, was a star. And my dad basically it was probably 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night. Tony comes up to my dad and says, do me a favor, I got to go to Terre Haute and I got to come back to Indy tomorrow. Could you take Clark Gable to the hotel? These are the days where the hotels were downtown Indianapolis. Nothing except for later on, it was a Holiday Inn on 16th Street. But my dad asked Clark Gable, and Tony didn't drink, but Clark loved to drink. And I think he finally said, look, we've lost count, so about ready to go? He says, yeah. He says, are you a practical joker? And he says, oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so we lived at 14th and Louette, which is only about 12 feet from the 500. Anyway, my dad takes a little detour, comes and rings the doorbell, 11:30 at night, rings the doorbell. My mother comes to the door with her hair up in curlers, with a house coat, no makeup on. He says, what the hell are you doing? You're going to wake up the kids. At that time, I was probably 7 or 8 years old. He said, what are you doing? He says, I want you to meet somebody. Clark Gable comes around the corner and said, hi, Mrs. Mates, I'm Clark Gable. My mother would not speak to my dad for 3 weeks. I mean, we always would say grace before breakfast or lunch or dinner. At dinner time, we'd always say, how was your day? And my mother didn't speak a word. It was just like that glare. And finally, about 10 years later, when I was in my teens, I said, what was the deal there? He goes, I'm not telling you, go ask your mother. So she had a chance to meet Clark Gable.
And they're 90.
Yeah.
Is this one of the original menus?
Yes, I'm just totally amazed at if you go through there, a steak dinner. This is what drew a lot of the people, not just the cheap booze, but the cheap food. I mean, even in these days, in the late 50s, well, mid to late 50s, this one is even idea. Here's
Well, they got fried onion rings, 50 cents and $1. Egg omelets, 90 cents. Oh boy.
here's the best one, I think, right here, the special, the steak special.
Sirloin top butt steak, $1.50.
$1.50.
All right, $1.50.
Yeah.
It includes, it says salad and drink extra. Oh, really?
Yeah, it was, my mother was kind of convinced because, of course, my two sisters and I are at school during the day, so she volunteered. And I'm not sure she ever got paid, but she ran the steam table during the daytime, and my dad ran the bar and everything at night. And my uncle pitched in whenever also. But one of the other great stories is Billy Vukovich, Billy Vukovich Sr. We'll go back up. My grandpa was from Yugoslavia, and the original name was Madic, not Mates. And that was a fiasco. But my grandpa wanted to have a name that sounded more American. Anyway, Vukovich came in, and my mother and him hit it off very well. Every single day, he would come in for lunch if he was available. But she would fix some special dishes from the Eastern European bloc countries. And so he was there all the time. And it was kind of a sad story that when he wanted the second time, we had it had to be 5 feet by 7 feet. And it was over the steam table, a picture of him in his car. And it was the day before the race, and the two of them hit it off like this. He said, Folly, he said, well, do me a favor, would you autograph this big picture of you? And he said, don't worry about it, I'll get it next time I'm in after I win in 55. And it's really just my mother was really upset about that one. That was one of her favorite drivers. I can go on and on and on, some of the different stories. Like my dad also, during the war, he was a tool and die maker. So he had a metal lathe in the basement, along with all kinds of other neat stuff. But I thought every kid grew up knowing all of the different drivers and the mechanics growing up, because on more than one occasion, the doorbell would ring in the month of May. I'd be home from school, and the driver, like Don Freeland, Jimmy Reese, you go on and on and on. These guys would bring these pieces of the car. Or mechanic would say, can we go down? We just talked to your dad at the bar, said it was okay to go downstairs and actually use the metal lathe because we have to qualify tomorrow. And so it was kind of a neat, I always thought every kid grew up knowing all the race drivers. And my dad finally took me, I haven't missed a race. I actually got up in the tree, watched the 55 and 56 race. Now, I could actually see the cars because there were no stands in turn number 2. I could watch the cars go by and just boom. But he finally he took me to the race in 57, and I haven't missed a race since because of all the excitement, the fact of growing up and again, being at the Mates White Front.
One of the other specials I just picked up on, a half-a-pound T-bone steak, French fries, tossed salad, $1.50. Coffee was 20 cents extra, though. One of the hot items in McGilvery's, breaded pork tenderloin. They were 45 cents here. Grilled pork tenderloin, wow, 45 cents. Chopped beef, 35. Ooh, cheeseburger, 45. Boy, it was a little more than that when I was there, but it was in the early to mid 60s, and it had gone up to like 2 1/4, 3 or something.
Well, the Mates, or not the Mates, the White Front Tavern sold chicken sandwiches for 25 cents. Yeah, and that's where a lot of the guys that especially worked at Allison's would come over and have lunch at both places.
You still have any of the quarters that they spent? Oh, 25 cents for it.
Oh.
All right, never mind. If you didn't get a chance to go there, it's a shame because it was quite the place. And when you go in there, there would be most of the field, if not all of the field, at one time or another would be there, and their sponsors would come in, and their mechanics. It was quite a place, and it was very seldom you could walk in and just sit down somewhere, because it was always, when I was there, busy.
Yeah, we do have a picture. I mean, again, if you guys are interested, we have an awful lot of photos, but one of the things, I had a chance to meet Groucho Marx, but I had no idea who he was. But there's a picture with two very attractive women sitting at, of course, he's got a cigar in his mouth. And if you did visit it, if you remember Larry Liggett, Three Flips and a Flop, Larry eventually became the head of the music department at Butler University. So he, you know, and it was just amazing what kind of music they could produce. This goes back why the IRS, should I tell this story?
The IRS isn't here.
Well, my dad.
Only one that knew about it's retired, so she ain't going to change it.
I didn't take after my dad. My dad was 6'4", weighed 220, had a 36-inch waist, and played semi-pro football. I basically had to tell you that because this little pipsqueak IRS guy came in at 11 o'clock at night at the bar and ordered my dad to open up the cash register. He wanted to see the receipts. He was with his girlfriend, even though this guy was married. He was with his girlfriend and was trying to impress her. My dad literally, after the third attempt, this guy says, "I want to see your receipts." Because we did a pretty good job of selling booze there. He literally picked him up by the seat of the pants and threw him out the front door in gravel. So this guy turned around on his ass, looks back and goes, "I'm going to break your back for that one." And he did. He put a lien on everything. We weren't allowed to hire any kind of attorneys. My dad even had an appointment with Robert Kennedy to see whether they could reverse the whole thing. That was 10 years later. Unfortunately, it kept getting canceled. It never did happen. But my dad never did really recover from that. He was pretty upset. But he did have a hot temper. He was a football player and kicked butt up in South Bend. So that's one story didn't really want to bring up, but yeah.
Why not? The guy's scars have dried up by now, so it's not a big deal. Well, if you never had the chance to go see, you can go by the building. It's still there. In fact, it's not a white front anymore, I don't think, is it? No, the front's not white anymore.
Well, there never was the white front.
Right.
The original house that they built, the tavern, which got chopped off during when they built the underpass, they chopped it off and it was white, but the name stuck. There's no reason to change it.
Well, very interesting stories. As he said, do you have the numbers of the tickets you passed out?
Jackie, get tickets to everybody?
Anybody wants one with a chance to win, we're going to have a drawing. But in the meantime,
all right, we can wait until after the show.
Well, we're going to do that. As everybody is aware, next Tuesday is St. Paddy's Day, and what better place to go and be Irish other than McGilvery's? They got an outstanding band coming in, actually. I forgot this. Got to find it. Here it is. The band coming in is, I've seen them play. I don't know why. Big Daddy Caddy. Good band, a lot of giveaways. Howdy will be here to autograph pictures of himself, as usual. And if you're eating and want to kind of take it easy, he'll tell you the Howdy Bell story. He gave it to me. It's 2 pages. 40-some years he's been at the Speedway, and he's got 2 pages to tell his history. If you missed the roast last Saturday, you missed a good time. It was fun. Anyway, we won't be here next week. We will be here the following week. So, I have a scheduled guest if Mr. Penske doesn't send him somewhere again. The president and CEO of Penske Entertainment, Mr. Mark Miles, is scheduled for the 25th. So we'll find out some of the inside scoop of what's going on. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next time, 2 weeks, Don Kay saying good night. All right. What number you got?